French laborers are trudging through a German-occupied forest when they freeze. Something massive is tangled in the trees above them. It's not a whole bomber. It's just the tail section. Torn metal, shredded aluminum, the kind of wreckage that shouldn't have anyone alive inside. But then they hear it. A moan. Movement. German guards rush over, expecting to find a corpse. Instead, they find 21-year-old Staff Sergeant Eugene Moran crawling out of what should have been his coffin, with a hole in his skull so deep they could see his brain. The question everyone asked was simple. How does a man survive a fall like that? To understand, we need to go back to that morning. November 29th, 1943. Bremen, one of Nazi Germany's most critical industrial targets. Which means one thing for the bomber crews. It's going to be hell. 300 B-17 flying fortresses are assembling over England. Among them, a bomber with a name that sounds almost playful. Rikki Tikki Tavi. Named after Kipling's brave mongoose. At the controls sits First Lieutenant Linwood Langley, 21 years old, baby-faced. The kind of kid who should be worrying about college, not whether he'll survive the next 6 hours. In the tail gun position, separated from the rest of the crew by the bomb bay and most of the fuselage, sits Eugene Moran. The tail gunner's position is lonely. You're facing backward, watching the world fall away behind you. If the plane goes down, you're the furthest from the exits. You're also the last line of defense. Gene knows the statistics. Tail gunners don't have great odds. The formation crosses into German airspace. Gene scans the sky through his gun sight. Empty blue. Too empty. That never lasts. The intercom crackles. Someone up front spots them first. "Fighters, 12 o'clock high." Gene can't see them yet. He's facing the wrong direction. But he knows what's coming. The Luftwaffe has a tactic. Hit the bombers head-on at 12 o'clock. The B-17's front-facing firepower is weaker there. Come in fast and high, and you might just avoid the top and ball turret gunners entirely. Then Gene sees the result. A fortress in the formation ahead simply disintegrates. A rocket-propelled explosion. The Germans are using their new Werfergranate rockets. Pieces of bomber tumble through the air. Gene doesn't see any parachutes. The German fighters blow past the formation. Now they're in Gene's field of fire. His twin 50 caliber machine guns roar to life. Hot shell casings pile up around his feet. He tracks a Messerschmitt Bf-110, leads it just right. Squeezes the triggers. Hits. Maybe. The 110 peels away, trailing smoke, or maybe it was already smoking. In combat, you never really know. "More coming! 5 o'clock high!" Gene whips his guns around. His blood goes cold. There are dozens of them. Bf-109s, FW-190s. More than he's ever seen in one place. The sky becomes chaos. Every gun position on every bomber in the formation is firing. The intercom is a mess of voices shouting positions, warnings, confirmations. "6 o'clock level! I see him! Watch the..." The transmission cuts off. Gene doesn't know if it's his plane or another. There's no time to wonder. A Focke-Wulf 190 comes screaming in from the side. Gene pivots, fires. The German breaks off. Another takes its place immediately, then another. Through his gun sight, Gene sees a fortress fall out of formation. Then another. Black smoke, flames, tiny figures jumping. Then the flak starts. Black puffs of smoke blossom across the sky. 88mm shells exploding at altitude. The concussions rattle the bomber. Shrapnel pings off the aluminum skin. Some of the German fighters pull back. They don't want to be caught in their own flak. But others press through, either brave or crazy, or both. The Rikki Tikki Tavi shudders as flak bursts nearby. Gene is thrown against the side of his compartment, but the plane holds together. These fortresses are tough. They can take punishment that would shred any other bomber. At least, that's what everyone says. Up front, Bombardier Donald Curtis is locked onto the target. The bomb bay doors grind open beneath the plane. Gene feels the plane lift slightly as the bombs drop away. 5 tons lighter in an instant. The formation banks and turns for home. The worst should be over now. Get out of the flak zone. Get away from the fighters. Make it back to England. Gene allows himself a moment of hope. Maybe they'll actually make it. That's when everything goes wrong. They're back! Bandits everywhere! The Luftwaffe isn't done. They've regrouped, refueled, rearmed. And now they want revenge for Bremen. The German fighters come in waves, coordinated, aggressive. This isn't harassment. This is an execution. The formation lights up with tracers. Fort after fort takes hits. Some explode outright. Others simply fall away, mortally wounded. Gene fires until his guns are hot enough to burn. He picks targets, fires, picks another. An FW-190, a BF-109, back to the 190. And then he notices something terrifying. The Rikki Tikki Tavi is falling behind the formation. At first, it's just a small gap, a few dozen yards, then 100, then 200. Gene keys his mic. "What's happening? Why are we dropping back?" No answer from the cockpit. He tries again. "Langley, you there?" The other gunners are asking the same question, panic creeping into their voices. Finally, a response comes through. Gene can't tell if it's the pilot or co-pilot. The voice is strained. "We're being pushed out." That's all. No explanation. No plan. The Rikki Tikki Tavi is now completely separated from the formation, alone in the sky. The German fighters see it immediately. A wounded bomber, isolated and vulnerable. They swarm. The attack is overwhelming. Fighters from every angle. The sound of gunfire is constant, metal tearing, glass shattering, and screaming. Gene hears the screams over the intercom, his crewmates, his friends being hit. Still no word from the cockpit. The plane is flying straight and level, but something is very wrong up front. Then Gene's best friend, Wilbert Pee Wee Provost, the ball turret gunner hanging beneath the bomber, comes over the radio. "Mo, there's one coming up underneath. He's right below us, right up our—" The sound of shattering plexiglass. "Buddy, I'm—" The transmission ends. Gene screams his friend's name. No response. A twin-engine Messerschmitt pulls up from below, right in front of Gene's position. The pilot made a mistake. He's too close now, right in Gene's kill zone. Gene's guns erupt. The Messerschmitt shudders under the impacts. Smoke pours from one engine. The fighter rolls and falls away. But Pee Wee doesn't answer. A BF-109 pulls up alongside the bomber. Close. Too close for Gene to bring his guns to bear. The German pilot knows exactly where the blind spot is. Gene can see him clearly through the canopy. A young man, maybe the same age as Gene. Enemy and enemy, just a few yards apart. The German pilot looks at Gene. Then he points at Gene, then points down at the ground below. Gene stares back, confused. Then he understands. The German is giving him a chance to bail out. Gene looks around his compartment. The intercom is mostly silent now. He doesn't know if the others are dead or already jumped. Is he the only one left? He sees the other German fighters circling in the distance, waiting. They've held their fire. They're giving him this moment. Gene meets the German pilot's eyes again. The gesture is repeated. Get out. Save yourself. Before Gene can decide, before he can even reach for his parachute, gunfire erupts from somewhere else on the bomber. Someone else is still alive, and they're shooting. The temporary truce shatters. The Bf-109 banks hard and accelerates away. Within seconds, every German fighter converges on the Rikki Tikki Tavi. The tail section becomes a metal storm. Bullets, cannon shells, everything the Luftwaffe has. Gene is hit. First in the arms, both of them. The pain is blinding, but he forces himself back to the guns. His weapons are jammed. He works frantically to clear them, his broken arms barely responding. He gets one gun working, fires a burst. Then he's hit again. The chest this time. Ribs crack. He can't breathe right. The plane lurches forward violently. They're going down. Gene looks around desperately. His parachute is shredded, useless. But there's a spare near the tail wheel. He tries to move toward it, sees crewmates lying still. Then he hears something that shouldn't be possible. A groaning, tearing sound of metal under impossible stress. The floor beneath him shifts. He grabs onto anything he can reach, looks up, sees sky where there shouldn't be sky. The tail section is separating from the rest of the bomber. Gene watches in horror as the main fuselage of Rikki Tikki Tavi drops away below him. He's still in the tail. The tail is no longer attached to a plane. He's falling. The tail section spins violently. The centrifugal force pins him in place. He can't move, can't reach the parachute, can't do anything but hold on and scream. Blood seeps into his eyes from the wounds on his head. The world becomes a red blur. The spin is so fast that gravity itself seems to disappear. Gene feels weightless and crushed at the same time. He's falling from 20,000 feet inside a tumbling piece of wreckage. Up in the main formation, navigator Jesse Orison sees the tail fall. He'd been blown out of the shattered nose section moments before and is floating down under his parachute. He watches the tail spiral down, the rudder and elevators fluttering uselessly. He assumes whoever was inside is already dead. The fall seems to last forever. Gene's consciousness flickers. Pain, spinning, red, darkness, light, pain again, and then impact. The tail section slams into a forest. Trees shatter, metal crumples. The violence of the impact should kill anything living. But Eugene Moran is still alive. Barely. He opens his eyes. Everything is wrong. His vision is blurred. His arms don't work. His chest feels like it's caving in. He can feel something wrong with his head. Something very, very wrong. But there's light, a gap in the wreckage. He crawls toward it. Every movement is agony. His broken arms drag uselessly. He can taste blood and feel his teeth loose in his mouth, but he crawls, inch by inch, toward the light. He reaches the opening, falls through, and finds himself on the forest floor. He looks up. The tail section of Rikki Tikki Tavi is wedged in the trees above him. Somehow, the trees broke the fall just enough. The spinning motion distributed the impact forces just right. The tail section structure absorbed just enough of the shock. 1,000 variables, any one of which could have killed him. But they didn't. Gene lies on the ground, staring up at the sky through the trees, and realizes he's alive. Then he carefully reaches up to his head. His fingers find a crack in his skull, a gap. He can feel the softness beneath. His brain. He's alive with a hole in his head big enough to put his fingers through. Voices approach. French, German. Workers from a nearby forced labor camp find him. German soldiers arrive, expecting a corpse. They find a broken but living man. Gene is dragged out of the forest and taken to a POW camp. A Serbian doctor operates on him without anesthesia, installing a metal plate to cover the exposed brain. Gene survives the surgery, survives the infection that should have killed him, survives the POW camp. But the nightmares never stop. Falling, spinning, screaming, the sound of metal tearing. Pee-wee's voice cutting off mid-sentence. When the war ends, Eugene Moran returns home. So does Jesse Orison, the only other survivor from Rikki Tikki Tavi. 10 men flew on that mission. 2 came back. For the rest of his life, Gene struggled to talk about what happened. The details were too painful. The memories too vivid. But the story lived on. Eyewitnesses who watched the tail fall. Fellow POWs who saw the man with the metal plate in his head. Air Force records documenting the impossible. The tail gunner who fell from the sky and lived. Years after Gene's death in 2014, his story was finally told in detail in the book Tailspin by John Armbruster, a close friend. It remains one of the most extraordinary survival stories of World War II, a testament to luck, physics, human resilience, and the fine line between life and death at 20,000 feet. When the Rikki Tikki Tavi fell that day over Germany, it took 8 men with it. But one man, against every possible odd, in a way that defied explanation, made it back. Eugene Moran, the tail gunner who fell with the tail, and somehow, impossibly, survived.